A silent kid, a pair of bullies, a hallway standoff that ends with the quietest student in school rewriting the rules without throwing a single insult. What really happened at Fairmont Middle? Watch now. Monday morning at Fairmont Middle School in Cincinnati began with a light drizzle. Raindrops tapped softly on the entrance awning like a gentle knock, while the overcast sky seemed to mirror the mood of the new student standing before the school's heavy front doors. Jalen Brooks, 14 years old, stepped into main hallway with a faded backpack slung over one shoulder and worn-out sneakers dragging slightly on the tile floor. He wasn't looking for attention, nor was he expecting a warm welcome. All Jalen wanted was a normal day, a day that passed quietly, like so many others since he moved from Cleveland. Everything at Fairmont gleamed with polish and perfection, from freshly waxed hallways to bulletin boards plastered with bright flyers inviting students to clubs and activities. The kids moved to the building like they belonged, laughing in tight clusters, earbuds in place, haircuts as clean as if they just walked out of a salon. Jalen moved quietly, his eyes observing, his ears catching the unfamiliar rhythms of a place he didn't yet belong to. He made his way to his first class, math, knocked gently on the door, and entered after the teacher gave a nod. No one turned. No introductions. No warm glances. Just an empty seat in the back of the room. Jalen sat, opened his creased and dog-eared notebook, his hand trembling slightly though his face remained calm. This was his third school in 2 years, and he had learned the rule. The quieter you are, the less trouble you attract. At lunch, Jalen took the last seat at a table tucked in the corner of the cafeteria. On his tray, a peanut butter sandwich and a small carton of milk. A few students glanced his way. Someone chuckled, but Jalen didn't flinch. He was practicing how to breathe evenly, how to exist inside a new space. Despite the gnawing emptiness he carried with him like an old bruise. What he didn't know was that, in just a few days, the very silence he carried would start to bother people. And the calm he held on to, that would be the thing that stirred the storm. By the third day's lunch, Jalen was in his usual spot, alone at the back table near the vending machine. His lunch that day, spaghetti, a banana, and chocolate milk. Nothing remarkable, but he ate slowly, as if savoring a rare moment of peace in the buzz and chaos around him. Then came the laughter. "Yo, what is that? You bring that from home?" A loud voice rang out. Jalen looked up. In front of him stood a tall, white kid wearing a varsity football jacket. Malik Carter, team co-captain, self-declared king of the school. Beside him were 2 others, faces eager with the kind of anticipation that fed off other people's discomfort. Jalen didn't answer. He lowered his head and kept eating. Brock didn't stop. "Look at this dude eating like it's the Great Depression or something. You starving, bro?" A few students laughed. Not all of them, but enough to make the air around Jalen feel tighter. One of Malik's crew, short, high-fade haircut, leaned in closer. "Hey, you deaf or just slow?" Jalen met his eyes for a second, then stood, picked up his milk carton. Still no words. No pushback. He walked away, leaving the rest of his food on the tray. No one stopped him. No one said a word. That afternoon, in science class, someone knocked Jalen's books to the floor. No one claimed it. No one laughed. No one helped him pick them up. After school, he found the word charity case scribbled in black marker across his locker. He wiped it off without effort. But the feeling it left behind couldn't be scrubbed away so easily. That evening, Jalen went to his Uncle Reggie's boxing gym, tucked behind an old auto shop. The air smelled like leather, sweat, and iron dust. Uncle Reggie didn't ask questions. He just looked at Jalen and nodded. "Get on the mat. Hit something. Let it out." Jalen said nothing. He changed into his gear and pounded the heavy bag with clean, sharp punches. No anger, just focus. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. He just needed to remind himself not to let anger take the lead. The next class period, in the second-floor hallway during recess, Fairmont Middle sounded like a chaotic symphony. Lockers slamming, chatter bouncing off every wall. Jalen Brooks walked the crowd like a shadow, silent, steady, one earbud in. He was getting used to being glanced at and then ignored like he was invisible. But Malik Carter wasn't like the others. Malik saw him, and he had no intention of letting Jalen pass by like a shadow. "Hey, new kid, what's a rush?" Malik shouted from across the hallway, his voice deliberately mocking, drawing a few snickers from nearby students. Jalen didn't stop or turn around. He just walked faster. But Malik wasn't done. He cut across the crowd and stepped right in front of Jalen. The entire hallway seemed to slow down. A few students stopped walking, eyes glued to the scene, curious and tense, like they were watching a trailer for an action movie. "Acting like you can't hear, huh?" Malik said, then suddenly reached out and yanked Jalen's earbud out, sending it clattering to the floor. A collective, "Oh," echoed down the hallway. Jalen bent to pick up his earbud, still silent. But when he stood up, he looked Malik in the eye, calm, unafraid, unwavering. That look made Malik hesitate for just a split second. "You quiet, 'cause you got nothing to say," Malik sneered, stepping closer. "Or 'cause you're too scared to speak?" Before he could do anything more, a teacher's voice rang out from the end of the hall. "Malik Carter, get back to class, now." Malik backed off, flashing a smug, taunting grin before brushing his shoulder against Jalen on the way past. The crowd slowly dispersed. Footsteps picked up again. Jalen calmly reinserted his earbuds. He didn't say a word, but inside him, something had shifted, a clear sense that he couldn't stay silent forever. A storm was beginning to rise, even if the surface remained calm. That afternoon, the back lot of Fairmont Middle School sat under soft sunlight and scattered bursts of laughter from kids playing ball. Jalen Brooks was stuffing his books into his backpack when he saw Malik Carter standing squarely in his path. His two goons, Dre and Jamal, closed in from either side, forming a tight circle. No one was laughing, but the look in their eyes was the same, contemptuous, ready for trouble. "Yo, Brooks," Malik called, drawing out the name in a mocking tone. "Heard you used to do martial arts back at your old school? That's cute. What, to protect your lunchbox?" Jalen didn't answer. His hand tightened on his backpack strap, but his face remained composed. He had let too many things slide, stayed quiet for too long. But this time, Malik had gone too far. Malik stepped closer and jabbed a finger into Jalen's forehead. "Say something, tough guy, or are you already shaking?" Jalen's back hit the red brick wall behind the storage shed. No way out. A few students in the distance were watching now. Some pulled out their phones. "I don't like fighting," Jalen said evenly. "But don't think for a second I don't know how to end one." Malik burst out laughing and motioned for Dre and Jamal to jump in. But they didn't know Jalen was ready. The first one lunged, and Jalen sidestepped, delivering a clean punch to the chest that knocked him flat. Jamal came next, but was met with a lightning-fast sidekick that stopped him in his tracks. Jalen spun, swept Malik's legs, and pinned his arm to the ground in seconds. No one expected the quiet kid to drop all three bullies in under 15 seconds. No yelling, no blood, just precision, calm, and a lesson taught in the only language they understood. The whole schoolyard froze. A teacher emerged from the back doors, caught the scene, and blew her whistle sharply. "Stop that right now. All four of you, principal's office." Jalen released Malik and stood up straight. He knew this wasn't over. But this time, at least, he had spoken up, not with words, but with action. Just one day after confrontation behind the school, rumors spread like wildfire. And as with everything at Fairmont Middle School, the truth was never the trend. There was video, sure, but not the full story. Malik Carter, still limping slightly from Jalen's sweep, was the first to speak up. A 12-second clip was uploaded to a burner Instagram account, showing only Jalen taking down all three kids. No beginning, no end, no sound. Just punches, kicks, and Malik being pinned to the ground. The caption read, "Watch out for the new psycho. Who's next?" Within an hour, the clip had over 1,200 views and hundreds of comments. Some 7th graders reposted it with fire and sunglasses emojis. But others quietly expressed fear. The image of Jalen, the quiet kid sitting in the back of class, was starting to be redrawn with Malik's warped brushstrokes. "I heard he broke a kid's arm at his old school," one student whispered as Jalen walked down the hall. His parents sent him here because the last school couldn't handle him. Added another, though no one really knew where Jalen had come from. In class, the seats around Jalen gradually emptied. He kept quietly doing his work, but he could feel the cautious glances. Even Mr. Carrington, the history teacher who once patted him on the shoulder with a warm smile, now looked at him with guarded eyes. One teacher even moved Jalen's seat closer to the door, just for easier supervision. On Wednesday, as Jalen entered homeroom, an announcement crackled over the loudspeaker. All students involved in last week's incident are to report to the disciplinary board on Friday in the administration office. Jalen sat down, his heart heavy, not because of the hearing, but because of how easy the truth could be twisted beyond recognition. That afternoon, he returned home, dropped his backpack onto the couch, and sat quietly in front of the TV. On but no one watching. Uncle Reggie, the one who had taught him how to control a strike, looked at him over a steaming mug of coffee. People fear what they don't understand, he said. But sometimes your silence can be power, as long as you know when to break it. Jalen said nothing, but in his mind, a plan had begun to form, not for revenge, but to reclaim his story. Friday came faster than Jalen expected. The sky was overcast, and a chill wind swept through the Fairmont Middle School courtyard, as if even the weather could sense the tension waiting inside the admin office. He walked the silent halls, each footstep echoing in his mind like a war drum. A few students whispered as he passed, eyes a mix of fear and curiosity. Malik, on the other hand, lounged on a stone bench near the office, one leg propped on his backpack. Scrolling through his phone like this was just another game he was winning. When Jalen opened the door to the administrative office, everything inside felt frozen. A long conference table, chairs arranged in perfect order. At the head sat Principal Keating with a stern expression. Next to her, Mr. Lang, head of disciplinary and a student council representative. All three had notebooks open, pens poised to write. Jalen Brooks, Principal Keating said evenly. You understand why you're here today, don't you? Jalen nodded. He didn't look at anyone. Didn't speak. There's a video, along with multiple reports from students and parents stating that you use excessive violence and endangered others, said Mr. Lang, his tone slightly pressuring. Would you like to offer an explanation? Silence. Principal Keating furrowed her brow. We're considering suspension, or in more serious terms, a possible transfer. This is your opportunity to speak for yourself. Jalen looked up, his eyes calm but deep, like still water. I didn't start the fight, he said, his voice low and steady. I didn't come to this school to cause trouble, but I'm not going to let anyone corner me either. No long defense, no shifting blame, just the truth, clean, direct, like a sharp hook to the chin. Mr. Lang sat up straighter. Do you have anyone who can verify your statement? No, Jalen answered, though deep down he knew that wasn't entirely true. Someone had seen, but he didn't want to drag anyone else into this mess. Not out of fear, but because he refused to let someone else get caught in a battle he didn't start. The hearing was temporarily adjourned. Principal Keating announced, We'll deliberate internally and make a decision sometime next week. As Jalen left the room, Malik smirked. Better start packing your stuff. Bruce Lee. Jalen didn't reply. He walked past him, shoulders straight, head high. He didn't need to shout to defend himself, but he wouldn't bow to a threat either. The storm wasn't over, but Jalen knew he was ready. Monday morning. The halls of Fairmont still echoed with whispers whenever Jalen Brooks passed. He had grown used to the weight of silence, not because people didn't know what had happened, but because they knew exactly what had happened and still said nothing. In the cafeteria at lunch, he sat alone again, just like always, but this time, as Jalen was halfway through an apple, a shadow pulled out a chair across from him. It was Maya Foster, the girl with short brown hair and round glasses, usually seen hunched over her sketchbook in the back corner of class. She'd hardly spoken to anyone before. You're Jalen, right? Maya asked, her voice small but clear. He nodded. Yeah. She leaned in slightly, her voice lowering as if afraid someone might overhear. I saw what happened behind the school that day. I was sketching near the storage crates, meant to draw the rusty barrels. I wasn't trying to get involved, but Malik and those guys definitely started it. Jalen raised an eyebrow. I don't blame you. You don't owe me anything. Maya let out a soft sigh. I do, though. If I stay silent, how am I any different from them? A beat passed between them. Then she added, I went to see Principal Keating this morning. I told her everything. I said I'd testify if I have to. Jalen blinked. He wasn't used to kindness coming out of nowhere, especially from someone with no stake in the outcome. Thanks, he said, simple but sincere. Maya gave a small smile. You're not dangerous. You're just the only one not afraid to stand tall when everyone else bows their heads. Her words were quiet, but they echoed through Jalen's chest like a drumbeat across the schoolyard. That evening, when Jalen told Uncle Reggie what happened, the old man just chuckled as he set down 2 plates of dinner. Sometimes the ones who draw pictures understand a battlefield better than the ones swinging sticks. Jalen smiled. For the first time in days, the smile didn't feel forced. And though the storm hadn't fully passed, a single shaft of sunlight had broken through the heavy clouds. The disciplinary hearing was rescheduled for Friday afternoon, and the air in Fairmont Middle School's conference room felt thick, like someone had shut every window and sealed it tight since last week. Jalen Brooks sat beside Uncle Reggie, back straight, eyes steady, like nothing in that room could rattle him. Across from them sat Maya Foster, her fingers gently gripping a sketchbook in her lap, her gaze sharp and unwavering. On the other side of the table were Principal Keating, Vice Principal Owens Tullier, and a representative from the Cincinnati District Student Conduct Board. Each had a stack of paperwork in front of them and an iPad cued to the same viral, edited video. Before we begin, Principal Keating said, her voice slow and measured, Maya Foster has requested to make a witness statement. Maya took a deep breath. I was behind the school that day. I saw everything. Jalen didn't start the fight. Malik Carter came at him first. Then the others followed. Jalen warned them. He backed away. He only responded when he had no other choice but to defend himself. Principal Keating nodded, then pressed play on the video. Everyone's eyes followed the shaky footage of the scuffle, the same edited clip that had misled the entire school. We received the original footage from the school's backlot security camera system, Mr. Owens added, swiping across the screen, and it tells a very different story. The next clip played, uncut, unedited. It clearly showed Malik stepping in front of Jalen, with Dre and Jamal flanking both sides. When the first punch was thrown, Jalen dodged, warned, and only then reacted out of self-defense. No one spoke for nearly a full minute after the video ended. We conclude, the district board representative finally said, that Jalen Brooks acted entirely within his right to self-defense. There is no basis for further disciplinary action. Jalen didn't smile. He just nodded, like someone confirming what he already knew to be true. As they exited the conference room, Maya walked beside him. She didn't say anything, but Jalen turned to her and quietly said, You're not just a good artist. You're brave. Maya smiled, small but real. You're the only one who stood tall when the whole school looked down. I just didn't want to leave you standing alone. A breeze passed through the courtyard, carrying something new, something Jalen didn't have a name for yet, but recognized, justice. The Monday after the disciplinary hearing, Jalen walked into Fairmont's front hall like he always did. But nothing felt normal anymore. Every sound seemed to lower just a bit when he passed. No more snickering behind his back, but also no more harsh whispers. Just silence, different silence. He walked past a group of kids who used to laugh at his hair. This time, they avoided his gaze. A few looked down. Others gave a glance, then quickly turned away. No one said a word, but in that quiet, Jalen heard more than he ever had. In science class, Mr. Abrams, who had never really paid much attention to Jalen, looked at him for a long moment before handing out the quiz. He didn't say anything, just nodded, a small nod, but clear. In the back of the class, Maya was sketching something in her notebook. When Jalen sat down, she tilted slightly toward him. No words, just a look of quiet understanding. At lunch, Jalen returned to his usual table in the far corner of the cafeteria. His tray still held the basics: peanut butter sandwich, an apple, and chocolate milk. But this time, no one hurled insults at him. A younger boy quietly carried his tray over and sat across from Jalen. He didn't speak, just ate beside him. A silent gesture, but loud in meaning. After school, when Jalen opened his locker, he found a small, folded piece of paper wedged into the door. You did the right thing. Not everyone is brave enough to do that. Respect. It wasn't signed, but Jalen recognized the handwriting. Feminine, slanted, like the writer was trying to preserve calm around something much bigger. That night, while folding his martial arts uniform and placing it in the laundry basket, Uncle Reggie stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You starting to feel better?" His voice was deep, but soft. Jalen paused for a second, then nodded. "I never wanted to be a hero. I just didn't want anyone thinking I was weak." Uncle Reggie smiled. "That's not a bad thing. But sometimes you're at your strongest when you don't need anyone to say so." Jalen looked down at his school uniform shirt. Quiet, steady, just like him. And he knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but now he wasn't walking it alone. That Friday morning, the Cincinnati sky was clear, sunlight pouring through the windows of Fairmont Middle School's auditorium, casting a golden hue across the rows of seats. It was a school-wide assembly. Normally, no one paid much attention, but today was different. Everyone knew Jalen Brooks was going to speak, and everyone had something they were waiting to hear. Backstage, Jalen stood with a folded piece of paper lightly gripped in both hands. But when his homeroom teacher called his name, he brought nothing with him. No paper, no script, just himself. He stepped onto the stage. The lights weren't blinding, but bright enough to see the eyes watching him. Curious, skeptical, silent with anticipation. He slowly raised the mic, his voice low but steady. "My name is Jalen Brooks. I've been at Fairmont for less than 2 months, and I've heard all the things people say about me. That I'm trouble, that I'm a threat, that I'm something to be afraid of walking these hallways." He paused. A few students lowered their heads. Others held their breath. "But I didn't come here to cause problems. I don't need anyone to be scared of me. I just want to learn, to live by what my parents taught me. That honor isn't in the strength of your fists, but in how you choose to use that strength." There was a soft rustling as students shifted in their seats. No one checked their phones. No side conversations. There was a time I thought staying silent was the best way to get through. But I've learned silence isn't always the answer. Sometimes you have to speak, not to shout, but to be heard, not to prove something, but to remind others that you matter. Jalen's gaze swept across the rows of students, settling briefly where Maya sat. She gave a small nod, like a quiet sign that he wasn't standing alone. "I'm not a hero," Jalen said. "I'm just a student who wants to walk into school like everyone else, and not have to brace himself just to exist." There was a long pause after that. Then a few scattered claps. And slowly, the applause spread, soft, unforced, genuine. After the assembly, a younger student ran after Jalen and asked, "Can you teach me how to stand tall like you?" Jalen smiled. "Start by not bowing your head to what's wrong." That was when he knew what he did wasn't just about protecting himself. It was about clearing a path for others to walk through too. One small step, but solid,